Hey everybody. So I am here to talk about the research that we did on poverty and how it affects the classroom and students' education. So obviously, poverty has an effect on what what we've talked about, long ago in our classes, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Obviously, poverty would cause obstacles to having those basic needs met. Um, Poverty affects students' health and well-being. It affects their literacy and their language development. It affects their access to physical and material resources, and also affects their level of mobility. So students living in poverty often have substandard housing. They may come to school already behind as far as their level of literacy and language development. An article I read talked about that students living in poverty come with less of a vocabulary and understanding of syntax because they are exposed to smaller amounts of vocabulary at home, because maybe in the home their parents are tired or stretched for time and conversation is kept to a minimum, or it's very basic conversations and commands just for communicative purposes. Also, impoverished families often lack resources. For example, they may lack the money to go out and get a quality daycare for their students. They may lack the resources to complete out of class projects and assignments. And they often move frequently due to parents' need to find work somewhere else or other reasons that, and this increased mobility affects students both academically and socially. So, they also found that intelligence is linked to health, and one's health can affect attention, reasoning, learning, and memory. The poor tend to be less healthy for a variety of reasons, from access to medical services to the nutritional value of their food, or maybe even their access or lack of access to food. And students often feel depressed or express or exhibit depressive type of behaviors because of their home and life situations. In the classroom, that may look like a lack of effort or interest, but the article I read talked about that effort can actually explicitly be taught in the classroom, and the classroom is actually the main factor for a student's motivation and achievement. So, as teachers, we must not lower our expectations for students in high poverty schools, but rather we just need to differentiate, scaffold, things like that, in order to support those students. Like any child, when a student knows that their teacher cares about them and seeks a relationship with them, they're more likely to be engaged in the classroom. So, in researching this information, I also found, and then I know if you've paid attention to like the political scene lately, it's been talked about a lot. Well, I say lately, in the last several years, but that it's very hard to get out of poverty and that the gap is actually widening between the wealthy and the poor. And students having access to a device with the internet can allow kids to access the world's information and can allow them to potentially change their social structure. And so, in researching this, I came across something called the digital divide, which is the gap between people who have access to computer technology and those who don't. Only 3% of low income students have access to the internet at home compared to 50% of higher income students. It's quite a bit of a difference. So, a big thing for us to do these days in the classroom is there's this push to integrate technology, but that can be, really hard for teachers to do or feel good about doing if their students lack the resources to make that happen. So, this school district in Boulder, Colorado, actually took the school district's internet and extended it to a community that was dealing with a lot of poverty and students were given a secret access code, and the filter of the school district's internet was applied and all that, but at least they had access to the internet and collaboration tools for classroom assignments and things like that. That's a great solution, but I mean, even a start would be just making sure students have a computer, access to a computer or some type of device that they could even, in the very least, use at school, in the classroom, during class assignments and activities. They could use it during downtime in the classroom or in the day if they have like extra time at lunch or something, some type of break activity period kind of thing. Next, I wanted to talk about that technology has shown that it can improve students' math and science performance. They've been positively linked, but then, of course, that doesn't mean that simply just using technology in the classroom, like, hey, everybody bring their computer. Okay, like that's not going to increase their performance, but like still including technology, but using it in a carefully planned and well thought out manner, and making sure assessment is carefully thought out as well and managed, then the link is shown positively. The internet does lots of wonderful things for people as far as when we're talking about them trying to change their social structure. It connects them to tons of opportunities and services. If they're looking for employment, for example, it can help. They can get linked up with social movements, maybe a movement to help their type of situation. It can link them up to social services, childcare. It can be a classroom, like use it online for all kinds of learning. In the classroom, an actual like building of a classroom, it can be used for interactive and game-based learning. You can use it for flipped classrooms, which, so a teacher takes what would be a traditional classroom period, I suppose, like the lecture portion, and records it and posts it online. The students access it, take notes, do whatever they need to do with it. They can rewind it, pause it, whatever they need to do to get the lecture portion, and then they come to class the next day and they use the classroom time to collaborate and practice those skills that were lectured about. And it then frees the teacher up also to be able to walk around and one-on-one work with the student, find their struggles, help them, explain it in another way, or help them where they're struggling. The internet also connects people with the government. Citizens can access reports like crime statistics in their neighborhood, maybe, or school report cards. It can also allow citizens to interact with their government, to report issues, or to sign petitions, or contact them to let them know about something going on in their neighborhood that they think maybe that the government isn't aware of. So, we're going to talk today about how technology can be used in the classroom to combat some of the effects of poverty and to hopefully help equalize all students.